Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are Podcast Network. This is We Are Bagu, Season 1, Episode 14, the lost Nintendo 64 game, Rareware's Dinosaur Planet. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, thank you so much. Please go to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, or iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. We're at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at /We Are Podcast. With that said, on to the podcast.
We Are Bagu.
Hey everybody, welcome to We Are Bagu. This is Duck. I am here with
Dr. E.
Dr. Ethan Eastwood. That is right. And we are here today. What is We Are Bagu?
What is We Are Bagu, Duck?
It's a video game podcast where we talk
Really?
Atari to Steam.
To Steam?
And everything in between. And today we're going to do a bit of a history lesson. I was just telling Ethan, bear with me. I have a long script. It will sound like I'm reading sometimes. I will try to make it as entertaining as possible because I have a passion for the subject we're going to talk about today.
Let me ask you about that. What is this weird obsession you have with this really obscure game that formed into Star Fox Adventures? And
yes.
For everyone listening, we're talking about Dinosaur Planet.
Dinosaur
what would eventually become
Planet.
Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube.
Yeah, Star Fox Adventures is what I like to call it. What happened was, when I was a young one, I will say at the age of, I don't even know if you were born yet, Ethan, Jesus. I would say this is probably, no, you would have been. You were probably 2 or 3 years old. This was early 2000s, or maybe, no, might even been late. Yeah, no, it would have been late 90s. Shit, because this game started development in 1999. So were you even born?
Yeah,
when were you born?
I was like 1 year old when they started working on this.
It's so crazy. And I was at school playing on a computer, because we had them there. And the internet, the internet was a new thing. And so IGN was the big one that everyone used to go to back in the day. And I don't know if
that was around back then?
Oh, yeah. IGN's been around forever, dude. And so that was my primary. I went to 2 websites on a daily basis. I went to Ain't It Cool News, which was my movie news. And then I'd go to IGN on a regular basis. And so I was at school looking up video game news, getting really excited about Nintendo 64 shit because I'm a huge Nintendo fanboy. Everyone knows this. And Rare was killing it on the N64. That was their heyday. They had all their classics.
Dude, Rare is the shit.
I mean, after Donkey Kong Country, you know, Rare's been around forever, but Donkey Kong Country, that's whenever they became a huge second party to Nintendo. Nintendo owned a 49% stake in the company, and they created Donkey Kong Country. They had this huge success, but Nintendo 64 is really when they hit their stride.
And they're actually still very successful today, because if I'm not mistaken, they made a game that me and all my friends are playing heavily right now, Sea of Thieves, which, so good.
I know nothing about Sea of Thieves, but we'll get into the Microsoft takeover here at the end of this bad boy.
Sounds good.
So what we're looking at is they had Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Diddy Kong Racing, eventually Donkey Kong 64, and then, of course, GoldenEye. That was the big one. I mean, right there, I just named off 5. Conker's Bad Fur Day, that's 6. And they also had Jet Force Gemini, that's 7 games right there. I know I'm missing something too. But Rare was killing it on the N64. They had the development down for that bad boy. So the last game that they were to create was to be Dinosaur Planet, and that's when I found out about it. Now, having played most of these games, I'm loving Rare, especially Donkey Kong Country Connection. I'm loving them. But so they announced Dinosaur Planet, and for some reason in the 90s, dinosaurs were the thing. That was the big thing.
I mean, Jurassic Park and shit.
Exactly. So this just really caught my imagination. And if you go watch the footage for Dinosaur Planet, which I highly suggest you check out. Also, I made a video on this also many years ago, which I will link in the description. This game looked like everything Rare had done meets The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And that's why it caught my attention. It very much was that. But what they did was when they first initially announced it in 2000 to be released on Nintendo 64, they released artwork, screenshots, video, some soundtrack material, all this stuff. And so
they were ready to go with Dinosaur
They were
Planet.
ready to go, man. And this was going to be the last game released on it. And that my young adolescent mind was just there. I don't know. It just spoke to me. And it caught my imagination. And I just loved what I saw.
What did the gameplay even look like?
Looks like Legend of Zelda. It looks like if you took Banjo-Kazooie meets
Were you playing
Legend
as
of
a
Zelda.
dinosaur? Or was it like a...
Well,
or were you in a world full of dinosaurs?
You are in a planet full of dinosaurs. You actually play as
human?
one character is a wolf and the other character is a fox. And we're going to get into that and breakdown of what that is. And we'll see the connection because eventually, like you said, this game did become Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet. And that was the decision that was made because Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of many Nintendo properties, such as Mario and Zelda, he actually went to Rare on a visit. And when he saw the footage of the game in action, he's like, this character Saber looks a lot like Fox McCloud. Why can't we just replace it with Fox and have a new game altogether? And that's exactly what they eventually did with Star Fox Adventures. Now, I keep saying Dinosaur Planet, but it's just called Star Fox Adventures. That's it. And initially, the team was very not happy about this. Phil Tossell, who was the lead software engineer for Dinosaur Planet, said that there was a lot of backlash from the working team on this. You know, they put their heart and soul into this idea. Yeah. They were super excited about their new IP.
You got Bigwig from Nintendo over here coming in and saying, oh, that's cool. It reminds me of this. Let's make it this. No, right. You're taking our baby, our creation, our thing. This is what we imagined it to be. This is what it was supposed to be. And you're ruining it.
And we're going to get into like what set this game apart from Star Fox Adventures, because Star Fox Adventures became a very different game with a lot of stuff you can tell was tacked on. It's literally held on there with a little bit of super glue at best. Like, it is not the IP it was meant to be. And you can tell whenever you're playing the game what was meant to be there and what was not. So it's a very weird, trippy experience. And a lot of people do love Star Fox Adventures. Me personally, I thought it was meh. But, I mean, as a Nintendo 64 title, I feel like this could have worked really well. As a GameCube title, it does not work because it feels too much like an N64 title, and you were looking for something more with the GameCube. So
did it just like not take enough advantage of the hardware, or where?
No, it's a beautiful game, actually. What's weird is trying to emulate it recently on my PC, and my PC does okay, could not emulate it. It's pushing the GameCube hardware to its limits, to the point where even trying to play it on my Wii, I was having issues running it. So it's one of those things where the game itself is gorgeous, and the lighting effects, the particle effects, the water effects, everything is nice. It really comes down to the story and how it's introduced, because as an original IP, it works. The problem is you have all these fantasy elements, and that's what Dinosaur Planet was to be. It was to be like a fantasy game meets a dinosaur game. That's the only way to describe it. But once you take the Star Fox IP and you introduce it, which is a fantasy science fiction story, for some reason, it just doesn't meld correctly. And you could see why they think it would, because, you know, they're animals and they're furries, basically, and they live in this furry future. And, you know, it seems like it wouldn't be that much of a hop, skip, and a jump to logic. But once you know the history of this game and what it was supposed to be, you can kind of see how tacked on it is. Real quick, I want to point out to you, though, originally this game went through many different iterations. Originally, it was supposed to be a racing game, and a lot of people thought that this ran on the Ocarina of Time engine, but it honestly is most likely a modified Diddy Kong Racing engine that they built this on. And they had been planning,
build like Dino Kart or something?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, if you play have you ever played Diddy Kong Racing? There's an entire portion of the game, the first levels, is dinosaurs. It's based in a dinosaur land. It's really cool, and there's actually a connection I'll get into later. But Diddy Kong Racing is one of the best racing games ever fucking made. Dude, you gotta try it. It's so fucking good. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But this was originally conceived as a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing. And even the character Timber, who was Timber the Tiger in that, evolved eventually into the character Saber in this game. Like I said, it began in 1999 with hopes of pushing the N64 hardware to its very limit. Their goal was to have fully detailed backgrounds and models, changes in the day-to-night cycle along with weather changes like rain and snow, which eventually were in the game, cinematic cutscenes with full voice acting, which was definitely there, along with animated full facial animation. So if you watch the videos online, they actually did push it to a limit. Like, it was really, really impressive what they were able to do on the N64. And yes, they did do that with the GameCube. They pushed the limits of the technology on the GameCube, but at the same time, it feels archaic when you play it. So it's a major issue.
How the hell do you go from Diddy Kong Dino Kart to some Legend of Zelda-esque sort of game?
I'm not sure what the connection was either. I just know that they wanted to do something with dinosaurs at the time, and I think that they were just building that lore in their head, and they're like, okay, well, we could test out some of the stuff here. Because if you
got this T-Rex that he's like the best racer in the world.
I mean,
then this like Fox dude shows up and just smokes him.
Well, you got to look at like Turok was the only game that was really doing dinosaurs at the time, and Jurassic Park before that, there was a million versions of the Jurassic Park game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like dinosaurs were still big; they were still within the zeitgeist, and I think they kind of died out by the time your generation came around. But our generation was all about dinosaurs from the Land Before Time until you get to Jurassic Park. And then it just takes off like gangbusters. And that idea, because like if somebody told you they were making a dinosaur game now, you'd be like, what the fuck are you making this for? It's stupid, you know?
I mean, there's still some big dinosaur games out today. It's stuff like Ark, Survival Evolved. That's the first one that comes to mind, but it's more of a survival game than purely dinosaur focused. But they're a huge part of that. You can tame them and ride them and, fight them, whatever.
Well,
so dinosaurs are still present in a lot of the games today. I mean, fucking Horizon Zero Dawn, robot dinosaurs.
Ooh, that's what we need.
Sci-fi dinosaurs.
But that's the thing is, people loved dinosaurs in the 90s. I would even say in the 80s because the Transformers had the Dinobots, and I fucking love the Dinobots. It's something about, I don't know, maybe there's a connection to Godzilla in some way because I love Godzilla, and then I get the dinosaurs, and they're scary as fuck. And they're just, they're just disgusting and awesome at the same time. They're just powerful. Like, I mean, even going to a museum and seeing like dinosaur bones back in the day, you're like, holy fuck, it's so big. And now you're just gonna be like, holy fuck, that's there.
Holy fuck, I can see it on my 12-inch TV screen.
But I mean, it really is. I mean, they were really cool. I can't downplay that. Ninja Turtles and dinosaurs, that was the 90s, man. So this game, the big thing that really intrigued me about it was the plot, or the ploot of the game, as I like to call it.
The ploot.
It was to be based around two interwoven stories. It was to concern two characters, one named Saber, who eventually became Fox McCloud in Star Fox Adventures, and another character named Crystal, and along with their sidekicks, Tricky, who was a Triceratops, and Kite, who was a pterodactyl. They both do appear in the finished game, Tricky and Kite, but Kite has been cut out. Her name doesn't even appear in the game. But Tricky is a main character in Star Fox Adventures. Lastly, there was a character, Randorn, who was a wizard and Saber's father and Crystal's adopted father, and he was eventually dropped entirely from the game. The game was to utilize the N64's expansion pack and house a 512 megabit, 64 megabyte cartridge, which would have been the largest Nintendo 64 game in storage. This was to be Rare's last game, like I said, for the N64. It most likely would have switched over to the GameCube eventually, along with games such as Eternal Darkness and Animal Crossing. For its American release, at least, it did release on that in Japan. But I think that, it definitely would have switched over because development wasn't done. And before they changed it over, they made the decision to move to Star Fox, and then they decided to take it to the GameCube. So it did eventually get released, but like I said, in a completely different version. Like I said, the two main characters, we'll talk about them real quick. Everywhere that you look, it always shows Saber and Crystal, but the truth is, Crystal, who was the female protagonist, would have been the main character in the game. And even though Fox took over the look of Saber, it was actually Crystal's story that he mainly took over in the game, which is weird, is they just took the two stories that were to be completely separated, and they just combined those two characters. So Crystal the Fox was to be the adopted daughter of Randorn. She was originally the main protagonist and was paired with Princess Kite, who, like I said, was a pterodactyl. They later did use Kite in Star Fox Adventures, but you only see her at the beginning of the game. There is a galleon, like a ship that you're on. It's like a floating airship, kind of like, think of like Bowser from Mario and stuff like that.
Okay.
And there's a bad guy named General Scales. And he's like this lizard-looking creature, kind of like a Kremlin thing, kind of like...
I'd be really disappointed if he wasn't some sort of lizard.
Well, you're right. I apologize.
If he was like a panda bear or something and had that name, I'd be really confused.
This makes no sense. I'm never playing this.
Why the fuck is Scales? Oh, the panda has claws.
I get it. Wait, that doesn't make sense.
No, that doesn't make sense either. Wait a minute.
But Kite was to be the animal companion, and there was to be a whole storyline with her and her mother, and they had a bad relationship, and Kite was afraid of flying. Like, they had all these little character things that eventually built into it.
Built this whole world, but what did the actual product, what did that turn into? Where did it go in Star Fox Adventures?
Gone. Crystal stays in the game, though. Crystal is a character in the game. Okay.
Was that Crystal's first appearance in the Star Fox universe?
That's correct.
Doesn't she become a pretty big character after this game?
No, not really. She appeared
prominent?
in Star Fox Armada and I think another game too. And she's just basically in one of the R-Wings is what it is.
Okay.
She's not a super prominent character. In this game, she isn't either. You actually start the game by playing as her. So there are similarities. Like I said, you have to go to this flying ship in the atmosphere. It's a galleon or whatever you would call it. It's general scale ship. You get up on that, and it's kind of cool to see in the game. Like, it's really, really atmospheric. And plus, it has a giant dinosaur head on the front. I don't know how that works. And it's coming at you and you have to shoot it down. But like that all kind of stayed the same. Then you have to go to the Krazoa Palace and you actually have to find your way through it and find the spirit and such and so on. But in the game, she was to continue through the story. Like, she wasn't just to end there. But in Star Fox Adventure, that's the end of it. And eventually you have to save her and you become Fox McCloud. Also, in the original demo videos for the N64 game, all the characters speak in English, but in the final game, they speak in like an Animalese kind of subtitled thing, and it sounds ridiculous. I prefer if they would have kept it in English because they had full voice acting throughout this whole thing. And
why throw all that away anyways?
I don't know, man. I always wanted the same thing. I wish they would just release the original game. The second character, Ethan, was named Saber, and he was a royal knight of the planet Animus. That's the name of the planet, Animus, Animus.
I'm sorry, say that for me one more time?
Animus.
Okay, it almost sounds like you're saying Animus.
It might be Animus.
Planet needs a fucking enema.
It might be Animus. It might be Animus in the
Because apparently that's what they did to this game in making Star Fox Adventures, is they just started flushing all the shit out.
Yeah, sadly, they took it all away. And if you look at the concept art, dude, I just love the way it looks, too. It was so good. Saber was the son of the wizard named Randorn, and Crystal was his adopted sister, like I said. He was originally be the second playable character in the game, along with Tricky the Triceratops. He was to have a sword, whereas Crystal had a saber, and you can see the saber later in Star Fox Adventures. That's Fox's main weapon.
Telling me the character named Saber had a sword?
No. The character named Saber had a sword, and then Crystal had a staff. I apologize. I'm talking too fast for myself. So, my bad. She had a staff. I screwed up. Saber's name may have come from Saberwolf, which was the title character of a game Rare made back when they were Ultimate Play the Game, was the name of the company. In the hour-long demo of Dinosaur Planet, Saber does not have a voice. It's only Crystal that has a voice. So anytime you hear like a grunt or a jump or anything like that, it's actually Crystal's voice, is what you end up hearing. Saber's voice and personality was originally to be performed by Steve Malpass, and he did initially carry over to voice Fox McCloud in Star Fox Adventures. So there's not a big difference either between the weapons that they use. Like I said, Saber has a sword, Crystal has a compact staff. But they
all kind of do the same attacks, same damage. There's not much variation.
Yep. And then in Star Fox Adventures, the big difference was Crystal has the staff, but she loses it like right away. I think it's knocked out of her hands by something that flies past her or something like that. So she never actually holds it. But if you watch the original footage, that's her main weapon. And if you watch that original footage, you see the Z targeting, the Ocarina of Time targeting used a lot. But it looks good is the things. Like that original Nintendo 64 footage, the battling looks like it's really fun. You know, it looks like you would have a blast playing the fucking game. That's the only way I can describe it. It looks fun to play. I don't know if it's because the characters are smaller or because it's the N64 hardware and you had that very specific look. But eventually, whenever it gets moved over to the GameCube, it just kind of loses some of that flair. It's a beautiful game. I don't know if you've ever seen video of it, Ethan, but
yeah, no, I've seen. I've always kind of had my eye on that game. It's just one of those that I've very carefully observed it from a distance because it's like, do I want to try that?
Yeah. And then if you like it, like if you fall in that category, people like it, they take a lot of fucking hurt for that. Like people who will stand behind that game, they always get ripped on the internet. Because Star Fox is a very specific kind of game. You know, it's an on-rail shooter. So when you take that and you try to do something so completely out of left field with it, which obviously we're talking about why it was so completely out of left field, it just doesn't work. And you can tell that there's literally just an IP slapped on something it wasn't supposed to be. It just doesn't work at all.
It's weird. Like you'd think Star Fox would lend itself really well to that sort of open world exploration type thing. And I mean, even then, I think if they took another crack at it, but just designed it as a Star Fox game from the beginning, they could get something more along the lines of like a Metroid Prime 3 type thing, where you have multiple different worlds you can jump to in your Starfighter, fighting enemies along the way and shit, and then explore those worlds and shit.
Have you ever played Star Fox Assault?
Mm-mm.
It's kind of like that because in Star Fox...
What was that released on?
On the GameCube. Star Fox Assault was made by Namco, I believe, and it is literally that. Like, you are in the R-Wing, and you'll be in certain levels where they're battle zones where you actually jump out of it, and you have to run around and perform tasks within different facilities and on land and stuff like that. Which there was a little bit of precedence for that built into the N64 game, because you could get out of the R-Wing in that game and fight, too, on the land. But this game really, really, really used it as a gameplay mechanic. So they were kind of trying it, but Star Fox Assault, it was kind of met the same way this one was met, where they're like, we don't really like this. So they kind of went back to the original, just keep them in outer space or keep them on the planet in the ship itself. And so all that extra stuff just became too much.
Hey everyone, it's just Duck jumping in here real quick to say thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you're enjoying it, please head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. And if you're enjoying the podcast today, please share with your friends. It's the only way we can grow this network. With that said, back to the podcast.
Yeah, so Star Fox Assault, like I said, it's a pretty decent game and it's fast-paced. But, I mean, even between the two, if you ask me if I wanted to play Assault or if I wanted to play Dinosaur Planet, I'd probably say Dinosaur Planet. So that kind of says where I feel about it. And honestly, if you ask me what Star Fox game I want to play, I'd probably say Star Fox 64, because it's hands down the best. And then Star Fox for the SNES is just like where it needs to be. But I don't know if that game lends to your generation or not. When you see that, does that intrigue you at all or no?
Kind of. There's just so many more games that are like that and have more to it than Star Fox these days that, I don't know, I don't really have any desire to go back and play the old original Star Fox or Star Fox 64 or any of that. I could fucking pick up No Man's Sky or something like that and, warp from multiple planets and shit, getting dogfights that are way more realistic, hyper amazing graphics, stuff like that. I might go back and play them at some point just to say I have. But really, I have no desire to go back and play those games these days.
And you should do that, because Star Fox is very much an arcade game. Like, that's how it feels. Like, it's an on-rail shooter. It's simple. It's fun. It's not overly complicated. And so that's what, the intrigue of the game is really to be pick up and play. It's not overly complicated.
It was very impressive. That graphical 3D that it was able to pull off on the SNES was amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
It was unheard of.
Pushing the limit of what they could do, the SNES, they had to put in the FX chip just to do it. I think it was the first instance of that, So just to get back to Dinosaur Planet real quick, just the last character was Randorn the Wizard, and he was the most complicated character and the one that we know the least about, because there's no footage of him. There's only artwork of him. But basically, he was a great wizard that was known for his kindness, but he liked to drink. I guess I added that in there. It's a British development company.
Dino Wizard?
Yeah, no, he was he was the father, so I think he would have been not a fox. Well, yeah, was it Fox and Wolves? That's what it was. Yeah, so I guess he was a fox. I'm not sure if they were foxes or not. They look like foxes. Yeah, I think they were foxes. But he comes across a hostile vixen tribe of... No, they're the foxes. Saber. Saber and Randorn are the wolves. The Vixen tribe are the foxes. That's what Crystal is. But anyhow, they were hostile to him, death by snoo, if you will. And he is overcome with anger, and he kills everyone in the camp except for the baby Crystal. That's how she gets adopted. How this plays into the game, I have no idea. But that's
going to be the bad guy.
That's some dark ass shit, dude.
He was totally going to be the bad guy. That was going to be their plot twist in the game. I can almost guarantee it.
Maybe, possibly. Eventually, General Scales in Star Fox Adventures, basically, he's just a patsy, and it's Andros the whole time at the end of the game. So maybe that was to be the changeover thing, too. That would be interesting. But he was eventually cut from the game completely. There's speculation that he was replaced with an Earthwalker, which is a giant Triceratops at the beginning of the game, in the Krazoa Palace test at the beginning of the game. So Crystal would have met Randorn in that part of the game, possibly, but that's all we really know. The only other characters I want to talk about, we talked about Kite already, who ended up eventually being cut. She was the sidekick character to Crystal. How she would have played into the game, we don't really know, because she would have had very specific gameplay mechanics, such as Tricky, the Triceratops, who did end up staying in Star Fox Adventures. And much of Tricky's role in the original game was kept, like I said, for Adventures. He was the side character to Saber. and he was the son of the Queen Earthwalker. What the storyline is, I don't know because I never played much of Star Fox Adventures, but he does have specific duties he can do as a side character. He can heal, which calls Tricky to come back to you. He can find, which means he'll dig and uncover things as he does so. Flame, he can set fire to stuff. Distract, he can do something cute, and the guard claws, which are the bad guys. They can't resist looking at them. Guard, he can stop bad guys from hitting stuff. And play, where you throw a ball and then Tricky chases it. This character was most likely intended to be the same character as Tricky the Triceratops, who is a boss from Diddy Kong Racing. And it's a great fucking boss level where you have to go up a hill and you have to race a Triceratops up a hill. It was really cool. The last thing that was in the game was the Swap Stone, which is a giant rock eater. Did you ever see the Neverending Story?
A long time ago.
Okay, there's a giant character called the Rock Eater who literally he's just a giant boulder that sits there on the side of a building, and he looks like a huge Muppet, and his job is he eats rocks. The Swap Stone kind of looked like that, and it will allow you to switch between the two characters. Eventually,
like the name of that fucking boss. Oh, that's gonna kill me. The rock monster that you fight in Metroid Prime 1 in the cave.
Way more cute though, because yeah. He's adorable, dude.
You got a thing for God, what is his name that's going to kill me? I can't make this joke without the name.
Thardus!
You got a thing for Thardus?
I do got a thing for Thardus. No, it's not Thardus, man. If you saw the Rock Eater from fucking Neverending Story, it's fucking adorable, dude.
So, like, on a scale of Thardus, like, very hard, serious looking, to, like,
Rock Eater.
The Earth God in Hercules, is it more that kind of cartoony? The Rock Titan. Yeah, no, it's way cartoony, and that's what makes it cute. Like it really is. Like I like it. That's the thing is I like the design of all these characters and the way they look in the world and the way they would have. Like when I watch that footage, I'm just like, I want to play that game. I want to play this version of it. So did the design of the characters change much between Dinosaur Planet to Star Fox Adventures? Or
not if you look at like what was initially. Like Nintendo 64 graphics, they really had to nerf down what the art was. But once you get to GameCube, that's the final realization of like everything that they always wanted stuff to look like. Like Mario looked like Mario. Luigi looked like Luigi. The Pokemon looked right. Like there was just enough. There was enough graphic capability in that, like when you play Mario Sunshine, you don't feel like when you play Mario 64 where it's kind of like polygonal and like there's issues with it, you know what I mean? It works, but you can kind of see the sharp edges. Once you get to the GameCube...
You can see Mario's beautiful short sleeves.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is when you get to the GameCube, all that's gone. Like they were able to actually start making it look like a cartoon that you were playing. Especially games like Mario Sunshine. Fuck, I mean, Metroid Prime, how real does that shit look?
For the time, it was amazing.
Oh, it's not a hop, skip, and a jump to the GameCube. It was a fucking leap over the Grand Canyon in graphical capability. It's insane.
And then Star Fox Adventures, that's still got kind of a cartoony look to it as well, but they totally ditched all that polygonal style. And
because cell shading came in like hardcore in that generation. That became the big thing, and cell shading allowed for things just to take on that cartoony aspect. But even if you look at Star Fox Adventures, like I said, they really are, especially with the particle and the water effects, they're pushing the graphics to the limit. So like I said, my computer, which has a graphics card from like 2018, still can't run it. It's insane. Real quick, I gotta say, the Swap Stone was eventually changed to the Warp Stone. What you were saying, though, is the change of the game between that, though, the N64, the GameCube, there was a giant leap in the graphics and the sound quality. Going from cartridge to a CD base, like we said, 512 megabytes would have been the biggest cartridge they could have done. The GameCube disc, I think, were 1.3 gigabytes. So not only do you double it, but you bring a little bit more into it. So Miyamoto was the driving force behind changing it. They wanted it, Nintendo, they wanted a launch title for the GameCube based upon Star Fox, and he saw an end. I don't know why that decision was made, but it's always blamed on Miyamoto. Every time they're just like, oh, Miyamoto saw it, and he's like, this looks cool, but we can make it better by adding the Star Fox license. And Phil Tossell, who was the lead engineer on the game, said that this was not accepted willingly at all by the Rare team that was working on the game, because the entire thing basically had to be rewritten. But like I said before, Nintendo was a 49% stockholder in the company.
What Nintendo says goes. If they want to make your game about Star Fox, your game is now about Star Fox.
Exactly. So they took the game, they titled it Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet, but eventually Dinosaur Planet was removed. Now, this probably happened when they released the artwork for the game and the video for the game and took it to E3 and places like that and actually showed it off. This was probably most likely Rare trying to save their IP. They were probably trying to build up interest in this so Nintendo wouldn't make the change, but it seems like Nintendo really didn't care. They were like, no, this is what we're doing.
Just think about it, though. I mean, from Nintendo's point of view, Rare, who is already a very established studio at this point, they're seeing dollar signs if they attach a very well-known IP to one of their games. So they're seeing like double, triple, quadruple dollar signs if you combine Rare, Star Fox, bring them together. Whoo, buddy. Sweet, sweet money. That's definitely the driving force behind that.
Yeah, and I think Nintendo, like I said, at the end of the day, they love their IP and they really wanted something attached to it. So they're going to take that opportunity to do so. After the decision was made to move it to Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet, there was very little interference from Nintendo at that point. They kind of let them do what they wanted to do. They did oversee it a little bit, but otherwise, the game that we eventually got wasn't tampered with too much by Nintendo. They literally gave them the keys and said, okay, take the thing that you have, tack on this thing, and let's set a release date for this bad boy. It is weird, though, that through this experience, Nintendo and Rare had always seemed to have like a very cohesive relationship. Here's what really happened, though. At the time, for some reason, Rare was losing money, and it was probably the high production cost of their games, because their games took a long time, and they put a lot of work into them.
They were expensive as fuck to make, I'm sure.
So they were almost going bankrupt. And like I said, Nintendo owned a 49% stake in the company. So they went to Nintendo and said, can you buy us and make us a first party? Places like Hell Laboratories, Pokemon, the company now, that's technically, I guess, what you call second party. So
Retro
Rare
is also one of them as well. Although, on that note, I'm kind of worried that Retro is going to fall into the same thing that Rare kind of did during this time, where Nintendo just wants to keep using their IPs and their stuff and nothing new.
We talked about it before, but Retro is a very interesting case because when they were second party to Nintendo, initially they had 5 games on the docket, and Miyamoto showed up and said, no, you are doing one game. And that's the thing with Rare here being, I believe, a second party. They went to Nintendo and said, can you just buy us out? We need the help. We're going for bankruptcy. And Nintendo declined it. So what ended up happening is Microsoft came in 2002, and they took over. So this ends up being the last Rare game created for Nintendo home console. And eventually they did release Game Boy Advance game. I think it was a Game Boy Advance and a DS port of Diddy Kong Racing. But as for a home game, this was the last one. Rare ended up being bought out by Microsoft for £375 million. And for a long time, Rare was only Rare in name. They had some games.
They only had a couple IPs to their name. That they
you know which one I
them.
missed? Perfect Dark. That was the one I missed, man.
Oh, yeah.
So we end up getting Grabbed by the Ghoulies, Cameo.
Perfect Dark Zero.
And also, I mean, the big one is if you own an Xbox One, you better have Rare Replay, because that is a hell of a fucking collection right there. For Banjo and Conquer and Banjo 2, that collection is so cool. I love the way it looks, too. So anything that does not have Nintendo IP attached to it ended up being able to be released later, because evidently they own the original IP, which is so weird to think, because Banjo is in Diddy Kong Racing, Conquer is in Diddy Kong Racing. So it's just so funny to see that carryover.
That crossover now. Yeah.
But for a long time, Rare did not release anything for Microsoft until, like you're saying now, Sea of Thieves, which you're saying is a big hit.
It was shit when it came out, but they turned it around. It's a great game, dude. I can sail on a galleon with my friends and fight skeletons, sail the high seas, sing jolly tunes, and rob people of their sweet, sweet doubloons. It's everything I would ever want from a pirate game.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I will say this. The biggest differences between the two games, Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventure, lack of 2 playable characters, Randor's removal completely, the entire end game of the game, like I said, they tack on Andros as being the main villain, and there was a 5th spell stone, because in the original game you have to go to these temples and collect these spell stones, right, throughout them. I did create a video, like I said, for YouTube, and somebody commented this on my YouTube video. It's Angel Achuro Quistra.
Angel Achuro Quista.
Quistra.
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 That's a hell of a name.
That is. He said, Phil Tossell himself, lead software engineer for that game, told me that the game was about 90% finished before Shigeru Miyamoto requested making the game into a Star Fox game. He explained the request was sudden, and it was not really accepted by him and the team. He still has the bittersweet feeling that Star Fox Adventures has been brought out instead of Dinosaur Planet, though he's still proud he worked on Star Fox Adventures, and that they pushed the GameCube's hardware to its limit. He also noted the game is not lost. They archived it at Rare's headquarters in Twycross. So,
Duck.
it still exists.
We need to go rob Rare Studios.
Well, we have you and your band of thieves out there in the high seas. I think we can make it work. I
so
think we
anyone at
definitely
Rare, you need to hook up the We Are Podcast network with some Dinosaur Planet, man.
Bro, I hold on hope that someday they would release it. Now, 90% is a lot of game.
That's
and
more than a lot of game. That's pretty much a finished game.
Yeah.
The other 10% was probably polish, I'm
Now,
willing to bet.
There have been people who've tried to do an animated version of it. There have been people who've tried to pay to get released, which has happened in the past. The GameCube Color had a version of Resident Evil that was being worked on.
Game Boy Color?
That's what I meant. Game Boy Color had a version of Resident Evil that had been being worked on for a long time that eventually did get released, and we've talked about that before. So it's a possibility that it has to be leaked by the right person. Phil Tossel? Phil?
All I want to know now is I want to find the GameCube Color.
Yeah, you're right. I'm an idiot.
I only have a GameCube. I need to level up. I need that GameCube Color.
I had a dream last night that I had a Game Boy Slim. It was pretty sweet.
The fuck is a Game Boy Slim?
I keep saying stuff that's not real. You were asking me earlier, what makes me want to play this so much? If you go watch the footage, if you go look at the artwork, if you go listen to the music, David Wise, who is a master orchestrator for Rare, he created a lot of the tunes. It just has an atmosphere and a look, and I just want to play that version. I feel like that version of it is the premiere version, and what we got was butchered. Now, do I know that? No. But that's what I speculate, and that's how I feel. And I just wanted that original IP so bad. And I love Star Fox, so I'm not against Star Fox at all. But I felt like it didn't fit, and I could see in between it, maybe because I was too close by wanting that original version of the game and being excited about it. I remember the first time I saw it, I called people over to my computer like a nerd I am. I'm like, look at this, look how cool this looks. Because it really did push the limits of Nintendo 64 hardware. Go watch those videos. The shading, the lighting, the battle mechanics, like everything looks like it's just really tight. And like I said, it does push the GameCube, but something about that original IP just spoke to me. I don't know why. Maybe it was the fantasy aspect of it, like I said earlier. It just made me intrigued.
If someone were to leak Dinosaur Planet in full, would you want that on original hardware, or would you want them to maybe like resume development for a modern console?
No, dude, just release the original. Just dump the ROM. Let us play what you had. Like, you don't even have to finish it. It's fine. What's the last percent? Like, I
don't know how credible that comment is, but if they were 90% done, there should be at least enough of a game there to play it.
So you're right. We need to plan a heist. Me, you, Jake, Javi. We're going to heist up.
I think we should prepare by teaching you how to heist, Duck.
How do I learn how to heist?
Perhaps we will cover that in a future podcast.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. All right. But with that said, did you have any other questions about the game, Ethan?
Yeah, Duck, I do have one more question. As I have never played Star Fox Adventures, I will not rate this, but what would you rate Star Fox Adventures?
I feel so bad saying it, man. I can't even give it a B rating. I'm going to give it a C.
Why are you giving it a C?
It's not great, dude. I really can't express it.
You were saying it wasn't bad like 2 seconds ago.
It's not bad, but it's like, here's the thing, is we talked about recently on Red Dead Redemption 2, couldn't keep your interest. Like, this game could not keep my interest. It's not like playing Legend of Zelda. And that's what this game in a lot of ways is trying to do.
You just need to get back up on the horse and play it again. No.
I know, dude. I want to, and I really want to. Maybe we'll come back and actually talk about Star Fox Adventures itself sometime, and maybe I'll change my mind. But as of right now, it's just too clunky. It just feels too haphazard, and it feels like it's barely put together. And my feelings towards it are just like, meh. But my feelings towards Dinosaur Planet are like, meh. Like, I love it. I want to play it. Like, I really do. So let's release it. Phil, come on. Phil, release the game.
Phil.
You know you want to. Other than that, yeah, C rating is what I'm going to give it. So, other than that, we appreciate you listening. This has been Duck, and I have been here with...
Oh, shit, Dr. Ethan.
But I got to tell you something, Ethan. Or maybe you should tell me this, because I'm feeling kind of on the inverse of this. Maybe you should let me know the truth.
The one truth?
The only truth.
The only truth. Duck.
Yes.
You ain't Billy Mitchell, bitch. Just stop trying. Just stop trying, dude.
I'm going to stop trying right now.
Just stop.
That was an education podcast. I apologize. But I like that game, dude. I really, 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 really want to play that.
I can tell. That's like, if you could make one game appear on a cartridge in front of you, that would be the one.
Yeah, if I could, man. It's something about that game. I mean, like, the N64 had a very particular feel to it anyhow, and Rare just killed it nonstop in the N64. So if I could find a way to play that game, I'd really like to. I don't even have to share it with anyone. I just want to play it. So I can be like, I played it once. And, and it's weird because I get to play a version of it, a bastardized version of it, but it's still a version of it. So it's one of those things.
The version of it.
Yeah, man, I want to play. Oh, Payday 2's done downloading.
And there it is. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you have enjoyed it, please do not forget, share with your friends. That is how we grow the network. And if this is your first time listening, head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, and give We Are Podcast a like. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love the other podcast here on the We Are Podcast Network. We have We Are Error, where we talk about movies, entertainment, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. That's me, that's Jake, that's Javi. We're breaking down pop culture, and we're having a blast. Don't forget Heroes Gyros, a Dungeons and Distraction side quest. Me and the boys were sitting down, we're playing some D&D, we're having so much fun. You can go ahead and start that from the beginning of the journey, Season 1, Episode 1. You're going to love it all the way through. And finally, I Hate Being Sober. Personal stories from epic people. I'm going to sit down with some of the most epic people I've ever met in this world, and we're going to talk about their life, we're going to talk about their trials and tribulations, and we're just going to talk about their journey this far. Head on over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. Also, head over to the Facebook group, We Are Error. We would love to see you in that group. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, share it with your friends. That's the only way we can grow this network. But with that said, I have to remind you, I can never let you forget this. You ain't Billy Mitchell, bitch. So stop trying. We'll see you next time.